Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 237 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you happen to be enjoying this podcast, or you do by the time you get to the end of the episode, I would really love for you to take a screenshot and share it in your socials. And of course, tag me so that I could get to know you and your business a little bit more, just like you get to know me as you tune in every week here. Or if it's your first time, maybe you might tune in every week. You can find the show notes for this particular podcast episode on my website at all the W's, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/237. Now, did you get a chance to listen into last week's episode? It was all about Instagram and really about all the changes we are seeing on that platform at the moment. We've seen so many changes over the recent months. And I just wanted to put a few of the most important ones, or the important ones that I can see, or the most useful ones that I could see together in one podcast. It's a really great episode. If you are on Instagram, or you want to get better at Instagram, or you're not on Instagram and want to learn a little bit more about what it can do for you and your business, go back and have a listen to episode 236 when you're finished here with me today. But today I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Selena Knight. Now, if you are in retail and you haven't heard of Selena Knight, you might live under a rock. Selena is amazing. She is to retail what honey is to bees. And I've been wanting to have Selena on my podcast for a little while now. And finally, we've done a podcast swap and she's on, and you get to listen to it today. We've actually spoken on stage a couple of times together, and we often cross paths in the retail world, but I'm chuffed that she will be here chatting with us today. Now, before we start, if you even want more of Jen and Sal, so if you get to the end of today's episode and you're like, oh my God, I want to hear more of these ladies' voices and more of their gold, I was actually on Selena's podcast as well. So her podcast is called Bringing Business to Retail. You can find it in all the apps, just like you can find mine. Or, of course, you can head to her website. The link is in the show notes. But basically, if you go to selenaknight.com, so Selena is spelled Alena, Knight with the silent K, of course, .com, you will see the podcast episode there with me on it. Yeah, so that was super cool to have lots of chats with her, all about business and retail. But of course, today we're going to talk about scaling your business, and that scaling isn't a dirty word. I am often involved in conversations about people who want to scale their business and other people who don't want to scale their business. And I think either way is just fine. But if you don't want to scale your business, I think just having a bit of a look into why you don't want to scale your business. And Selena has some really great points as to perhaps it doesn't mean what you think it means, or perhaps it's not going to be as hard as what you think it's going to be. So it's a really great episode. Now, Selena was actually a former arborist. I know, right? That found she was better at building the businesses that she worked for than climbing trees. And in 2007, at the beginning of the global financial crisis, she launched her first e-commerce store, going on to actually be a multi-award winning chain of eco-focused stores in Australia. Now, she sold that store, and of course, or that chain of stores, I should say, but she's actually spent over a decade sharing highly effective growth strategies designed to specifically address the unique needs of independent retail and e-commerce store owners. Today, like I said, we are talking about scaling. And before you think, I don't want to scale. Listen in. I promise you there is so much gold in this chat with Sal. Anyway, I'm just going to get on with it. Here's my chat with Sal. Joy. Selena, I am so happy to have you in on the podcast today. I'm pretty sure that this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on my podcast for a very long time. So super welcome.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think this is going to be super, like we have already been laughing and giggling, and I think people can feel that energy in a podcast, and it just, if you can hear that people are having fun and it's a great conversation, you want to be part of it. And I think it's so powerful, and we really need to respect people who listen because we are literally in their heads right now.
Yeah.
Like you have your earbuds in, we are in your brain. So I think making sure that we deliver value, but also a conversation that people feel like, they're part of, that is really important when we go live with a podcast. So
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. And two podcasters, two marketing retailers talking, this is going to be a fun one. But for my listener who perhaps hasn't come across Selena Knight or just wants to know a little bit more about you, let's start there. Tell me a little bit about yourself and about your business. Start wherever you like.
Oh, okay. Let's start like right back at the beginning. We'll just condense it down so that we don't take too long, which was I had to leave home when I was 14. My mum didn't really like kids. Funnily enough, I kind of developed that as well. We'll get into that. My mum didn't really like kids, so I had to leave home at 14, didn't have anywhere to go, kind of bounced around a little bit. So I was kind of essentially homeless, ended up getting shipped off to my paternal grandparents. So I lived in Queensland, they were in Sydney. They weren't really ready for a teenager. And I have to say, like, I reckon I was like uber cool teenager. Like I literally just sat in my room and read my books.
Okay.
Like I had two goldfish and I loved reading. I wasn't rowdy, but they kind of weren't ready to have a teenager in the house. My grandmother was super strict. And anyway, it all broke down a few months later. And I ended up at the age of like 15. So I was 14 when I left. And at 15, I moved in with my teenage boyfriend's mum. Like, just think about the boyfriend you had when you were 14.
Well, I have to actually say I married my 15-year-old boyfriend. Or when I was 15, I actually married that man. So my story is a little bit unique that way. But I would not have moved in with his mother. Sorry, Pam, if you're listening.
But I look back now and she was absolutely bonkers fruitcake. Like I look back now.
That's not funny. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, she had a whole host of problems, and she was literally a nut job. Like her version of like spaghetti bolognese was literally spaghetti with tomato sauce, tomato ketchup. Like that's what you would get. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I remember I used to kind of make fun of her behind her back. But now as a grown up, I'm like, oh my God, like that lady took in her teenage boyfriend's, girlfriend, teenage son's girlfriend. Like that's a huge commitment. And admittedly, it wasn't for a long period of time because I actually ended up randomly, I finished school year 12 when I was 15 and 9 months. Long story. So I ended up moving from Blacktown in Sydney, which at the time was very sort of lower socioeconomic, but just very suburban. Like no one was rich, but lots of ex-housing commission where people had bought the houses. Nothing was fancy. No one had pools or anything like that. And I moved from Blacktown to Newtown, which if anyone knows Newtown, it's like the St Kilda in Melbourne, like very edgy, geeks and freaks is what it was.
Yep. Okay.
And moved there with the boyfriend, again, like 15 turning 16. And funnily enough, that relationship didn't last. I wonder why. Ended up moving out on my own and got a job, stayed in corporate. I worked for the government. I was a horticulturist and arborist. And I worked for the government for 15 years or so.
Wow.
Ended up getting to the point where, and I didn't know it at the time, but what I was really good at was hacking systems to make things better, cheaper, faster. which
Okay.
is really difficult in government because nothing is better, cheaper, faster. And so looking back now, I can see how I used to hack these systems. I would just make systems up. Like we were like Google driving things back in the day because or emailing things and putting them in drives so people didn't have to deliver pieces of paper. Anyway, fast forward all of that. I left my cushy government job and started up an eco baby business back at the beginning of the global financial crisis, number one, which was 2007. I was pregnant with my daughter, passionate about sustainability. Eco was not a thing. So I did a lot of importing of products, a lot of manufacturing of products, grew that business to an award-winning chain of stores, which I went on to sell in 2015. And then from there, I rested on my sales laurels for a few months while the money was, in the bank, got very, very bored, and kind of fell into this consulting role, but not meaning to, realized I have a really good knack at growing businesses. Like I say that my superpower is being able to have a conversation, and sometimes within minutes, like 2 minutes, I will know like instinctively where the problems are and what they need to do to get to here, which is not, a little jump, but like the end jump. And that can be really scary for a lot of people because having somebody tell you that you can go, I'm just going to pull numbers out of the air. Let's just say you're doing $100,000 and I'm saying, but you should be doing 10 million. Like the concept to someone Xing that amount quite often is unfathomable, and they can't even see how it would be possible. But I've already seen it. I already know all the things that we could do to get you there. And so
Is that because they're already in the grind? They're already like, I don't have time to go to the toilet, or I'm not even seeing my kids now at 100,000, never alone talking 10 million. Is that their thing that they're like, how on earth am I going to find time for that?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think the other part is quite often people start a business because, and whether it's retail, e-commerce, or a service-based business, because they either see a need, like a gap in the market, or they have something that they're passionate about, whether it's a product or a community, and they just want to fill, this is especially women, they just want to fill that gap. And so they don't go into it thinking, I want to build a $100 million empire. It's like, I just want to help these people.
Yes.
And I can do that by X. And so, like you said, they start, and then the reality sets in that is, is this PG rated?
Yeah, it is PG rated.
Okay. Oh, crap. I have to make money out of this thing because it's no longer a hobby and it's taking a lot of my time, and I'm not seeing my kids as much. And, my husband's saying, are you still working? And I'm, forfeiting my weekends, and I'm at soccer and I'm on my phone. And you start to realize that. So the concept of going from where you are now to, 10xing or 100xing is like, but I can't see how it would happen without me having to work more. And so I would love it if we could talk about that, because quite often, in fact, nearly always, the answer to scaling a business, which I know we're going to talk about is kind of a dirty word, but the answer to scaling a business is not about working more. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's being comfortable. And look, I still struggle with this now. Like I'm literally here making work because I don't know what it's like to not work. I have worked since I was 15. And for many, many years, I worked 2 jobs back to back, like my full-time government job. And then I used to pack shelves at Franklin's back in the day from 4 o'clock. So I finished at 3. I would go from 4 till 11 and then back at work at 7 o'clock the next morning. And so working for me is almost like a hobby. But I think the foundation of all of that was that concept that we get fed. And I really hate that whole hustling culture, which is the myth that if I work more, I'll make more money. And I think that happens when we work in a job for someone else, because you get paid on an hourly rate. So the more you work, the more you get paid. But it doesn't work like that when it's your own business.
I think that's such a great distinction. But I think most of us start off as an employee. Not many people go straight into owning their own business. So we're bringing those foundations that we learned with us into our own business. So that's such a great example to sort of stop and think it's not the same.
Oh, I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but if I could quickly jump in, I have kind of written out my version of the 4 roles that you take in your own business. And the first one is employee. Like, you are literally doing everything, and the whole business is built on how much time, money, and energy, how many hours you put in. That's the only thing that grows the business.
Mhm.
And so once you can kind of get out of that grind, you move into what I call the manager role, because I'm in retail, right? So a lot of these are kind of retail related, retail and e-commerce. So you move into manager role, which means you probably have some people working for you, but your job is basically just to keep the things turning over. Like, you're still working in your business in retail and e-commerce, like you're still in the store, you're still packing orders, you're still answering emails, all those kinds of things. Just think of what a shop manager would do, a store manager. Like, that's the role you're taking on. So when you move up to the next level, it's what I call the faux EO instead of a CEO, because the faux EO, it gets to the point where business is kind of doing okay. Like, you can go on a holiday and it still runs. Like, there are still people to open the doors or pack the orders or keep the business going. You know, the marketing's still going out in some way, shape, or form, even if it was pre-done. But the business is still making money. However, this is the level most people get stuck at. And this tends to happen at kind of mid 6 figures, generally speaking, in my experience, to low 7 figures. And this is where the faux EO is controlling rather than being in control. So they micromanage everything. Like, they're the people who are constantly, you know, was this done? Was this done? Was this done? Was this done? Or that wasn't done the way that I said it. Like, they have to have their hands, like their fingers in every single pie. And just because something was done, if it wasn't done the exact same way that they would have done it, it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens at that level, this is where businesses plateau, because when you're at this level, and look, I slip back into this all the time. So I'm not saying like, you know, I'm the master at this or anything like that. It's so easy to do, especially when you love working, because you've built, like, I've built 2 businesses now from the ground up, from the point of, you know, having to know how the emails work. And I actually, now we've got a new CRM. I have no idea how to send an email. I refuse to learn how to send an email, specifically to stop myself from butting in to what my team, what I've delegated my team to do. I haven't written an email for 5 years, you know, but they all sound like me. And then once you get, like, if you can get past that, if you can at least recognize that for what it is so much easier to move to, you know, what we call in the industry CEO. And it's not what a Fortune 500 would call a CEO, but essentially it's the person who drives the business forward. But if you think about a Fortune 500 CEO, they're not doing the work. They're not sending the emails. They're not out answering sales calls. They're not packing orders. What they're doing is making sure that all the people who are under them are hitting their KPIs, are reporting back, they're on track to be where they need to go, and you're building relationships. That's what they do. Like, they, you know, if you look up the definition of CEO, it's going to be something along the lines of taking the board's vision and making sure it gets implemented. So they kind of run the ship, but they're not out there, you know, washing the decks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, which is kind of where we thought we would take this conversation, is that isn't everyone's dream. Not everyone wants to be the CEO of their own business. And I can already think of 5 or 6 really good friends who are in retail who go, but I'm so much better on the floor. That's where I want to be. So I want people to, you know, do this and do this and do that. But, you know, I want to be on the floor. That's where my passion is. And that, you know, is where I want to be. So hire other people to do the other jobs. And I think that's really great. And I think, you know, if you have a passion for your business, you should stay in that passion if that's what you would like to do. and you can scale up otherwise. But one of my first comments to you when we were doing a pre-chat before I press record is some of the circles I hang around and, online and offline, the word scale is a bit of a dirty word. Like they're like, you don't have to scale your business. Not everyone needs to be a 6-figure business and a 7-figure business, which is 100% correct. But I really feel for the people who would like to scale because they're almost made to feel a bit icky because they do want to scale.
Because they want more.
They want more. They want to be a CEO. They don't want to be doing the doing. So how do you see that? Do you find that scaling is a bit of a dirty word? Because your business is all about scaling, helping people.
My program is called Scale Your Store, right? So that's the whole. There's so much to unpack here, and please feel free to stop me if I waffling, because I feel like you touched on 3 big things. So the first one is it is okay to want to have a job, which is the people you're talking about. Like they work on their shop floor. They just basically they want a job. They want a nice, secure job where they go in every day. They feel happy. They get to engage with customers. They're doing okay. That is totally okay. What I would say there is, because I love making people money, which kind of segues to the next part, which is we have a saying inside of all of our programs: the more money you make, the more people you can help, or the more money you make, the more people you can serve. Mm-hmm. And the way in retail, I explain it like this: if you make more money, you've probably served more customers to begin with. Like you've sold more things, you've helped more people, and every transaction that you have is helping the end person. Like people buy from you for a reason. Yes, they're buying to solve a want or a need. You didn't con them out of their money. So the first part, the double entendre is the more money you make, the more people you can help. So 1, you help your customers, but 2, you can then take that money and do stuff with it. And so I remember having this conversation with my daughter, who's now 14 and doesn't have a conversation at all. But we were walking down the hill back home from walking the dogs, and we were talking about money. And she was asking the question about whether she should spend her money on something expensive or should she get the cheaper version. And she wanted to buy flowers because there was a florist just at the end of our street. And I was like, well, if you buy flowers from Banjo's mum, that was the lady who ran it, if you buy flowers from Banjo's mum, when you give her that money, she gets to use that money to pay her rent. So she's going to be helping the person who owns the store. She can pay for Banjo to go to kindy. So my daughter's in year 9 now. This is how long the conversation was, but it was one of those lasting moments. She can pay for Banjo to go to kindy, and maybe they might like to go on a holiday. So she can take your money and put it towards going on a holiday. And right next door to the florist was a Thai takeaway restaurant, and she went, maybe she could take my money and buy Thai takeaway for the family. And so it's probably one of the big things I've instilled coming from ridiculously poor family is the value of money. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to think that I've instilled that in her. And we get this kind of segues to the next bit, which is scaling is seen as dirty. But why? Like if we make more money, we serve more customers, we can put more money back into the economy. We can buy a nice car if we want to, but that money still goes other places. And I think we get so tall poppied here in Australia about the fact that we make more money. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people who make a lot of money give to charity. Like they send their kids to a private school, sure, but they're still paying teachers. They're still paying taxes, all those things. So if we can take this stigma away from being okay to make a lot of money, then I think that kind of reverses everything as well. And so I don't wonder if the people who make scaling out to be a bad thing are people who have a problem with other people having money.
That's a very deep question. And next time I see someone dissing on scaling, I will run that through my little brain and go, what's that? But so often when we're doing things and hearing things, the person saying it says more about them than the person.
100%. And I think that the additional part of that is and we can't affect how other people act and how they think. And so I think if you're arguing that someone scaling is bad or icky or whatever. The question is it just because you feel inferior because you either don't want that or you're too scared to have that? How does it affect you if someone makes more money? How does it affect you if someone builds their business? Like it just doesn't. So where do you get the right to say to somebody that they're bad or they're evil because they want to help more customers?
Yeah, that's a very, very big question, of course, and probably one that we can't answer on, a short podcast interview. But I'm sure that it will be a conversation we will keep talking about. But as far as scaling goes, I know you've got a few hacks that you've sort of learned along the way of scaling your own businesses as well as teaching many, many people around scaling. Can you share with us a couple of hacks that you've either learned or you've helped other people discover along their journeys?
Sure. I think the first one is the one we just talked about, the different roles. That is even just being aware of them is a hack, and knowing when you're sliding back into an employee or a manager or a faux EO, or even just noticing where you're at in that journey. And, if I want to move to the next level, I probably need to think a little bit differently or act a little bit differently. So that I'd say is my first hack. My second one is one that took a business from $120,000 a year to $1 million a year in 5 months, which sounds impossible.
Sounds like a very fast headache.
It is. And to be fair, businesses can implode when that happens.
Yes.
Because everyone tells us to prepare for the worst case scenario, but no one ever tells us to prepare for best case scenario. That business didn't implode, which was great, but it did hit some really huge hurdles when you scale that quickly. But for that business and for all the businesses that I work with, I have this thing called the 5 pillars of retail success. You can put them into any business. It just says retail because that's the thing that I'm in. Money, sales, customers, marketing, and impact. And at any one time, one of those pillars is the thing that you and your business are crap at. And here's the thing. So every person, I'm going to go out on a limb and say every single person that I work with is focusing on the wrong thing, and that is why they're not growing. So, for example, they're focusing on posting on social media, not to diss social media, but I've built quite a successful business without doing an awful lot on social media. Posting on social media and spending 2 or 3 hours a day, when the reality is they just don't have a profit margin, or they don't have the customers coming in. And if they fixed that thing, like fixing their profit margins and increasing their prices, or getting more customers in the door, when they identify which of those pillars is holding them back, that is when all of a sudden a lot of the problems that you thought you had just disappear. Because posting on social media doesn't become an issue when you are only doing it because in desperation you're trying to drive customers or drive sales. But actually, if you're making more money, that kind of falls away and you start creating the content that you think your customers want, rather than these desperate, this is on sale. Buy this thing, buy this thing, buy this thing. Did I mention you need to buy this thing? And so the big hack, that's the whole foundation of our business. And I didn't know it at the time, but I've kind of solidified it down, which is if you can just focus on the pillar that is the weakest for 90 days, you will see exponential results. Like we had somebody do this just this week in our program, second week in our program, just made $11,000. And so it doesn't sound like it's a huge amount of money.
But it was for them, perhaps.
It was for them.
Yeah.
And there was no outlay whatsoever. There will be outlay in the future. But here's the thing. I probably one of the few people who guarantee that you will make back whatever you pay me, whether it is a $27 product or a $26,000 product or a $100,000 product. I will put my money on the table and say, if I can't help you make that money, I will give you your money back. And so for her, 2 weeks in, she's like more than halfway there to getting the money back. In a 12-month period, she's halfway there. Yeah. And like another person, we just did $75,000 in 6 weeks. Now, I'll be honest, 50 of that 75,000 was getting rid of a really toxic employee. But the new person that they're going to hire is only 30,000. And so there you go, $20,000 So she's nearly paid for her program as well. And that is because like I said, I have that ability to see the things that need to be fixed in a business. Like I'm a fixer. That's what I do, which can be really polarizing for your friends. It's like, I just wanted you to listen, but I can fix this for you. Here are 4 things we could implement right now.
When you start to not get invitations to parties, maybe you should, scale back.
No, you just need to hang out with the right people who get really excited about it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good point.
So my second hack is just focus on the thing that you need to, not the thing that is the busy work. It is so easy to put 400 things on your to-do list just so you can cross them off.
Yeah.
But if those 400 things don't actually need to be done, and you're literally doing it so you can justify the amount of time that you're putting in, that is why your business is not scaling. That is why your business is not growing. And then my third thing would be ridiculously simple. Anyone can do it. It won't cost you a thing. Know what you actually want out of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, it's very rare, and I don't know about you, but you probably see this as well. It is very rare to be able to ask that question to someone. In fact, I'm going to ask you, Jen, what do you want out of your business?
What do I want out of my business?
What's your vision for the business?
My vision, for my marketing and social media business, my vision is to change the world one small business owner at a time by giving them strategy.
How are you going to measure that? Like, what's every small business owner?
Well, that's the idea. Why not? Go big or go home.
So how are you going to measure that, though? How are you going to know how many small business owners there are and whether you're helping them?
Well, I know that I'm helping them because I work with them and I see their problems going away, or I see them scaling their businesses and concentrating a little bit, like you were saying, concentrating on the bits that need to be concentrated on. Like too many small business owners, from a marketing point of view, don't make marketing a priority in their business.
No.
So that if they just made marketing a priority and had a little bit of strategy around it, rather than posting for posting's sake or emailing for email's sake or marketing because some crazy lady on a podcast told her they had to, life would be a little bit better.
But what does your life look like? Like, do you know how much revenue you want to make? Do you know how much money you want to take home? Do you know how many hours you want to work? Do you know how many people you want to have working for you?
Well, I've got a team of virtual assistants, but I do not want any employees. Yes, I do. I'm very, very comfortable with my business model at the moment, for sure.
So 10 years from now, if I was to sit down and say to you, oh my God, Jen, I cannot believe everything that you've achieved. What have you done? What's happened?
Well, you'll be making an appointment at the lodge, I'd say. I'll be running the country.
Is that actually, is that in the cards?
Well, I don't know if it's in the cards, but it's on the goal list to go into politics and change the world.
Awesome. And so here's the thing. Most people can't answer that question. Most people can give you half an hour of everything they don't want. Yeah. And they can't give you a distinct answer on what they do want. And so my question to you listening, not necessarily you, Jen, would be, if you don't know what you want, then how the heck are you ever going to know if you got there? Yeah. Like, how do you ever get to see success if there is no definition of success? And I am terrible at this. Like, I think if you are someone who loves working, and if you are like very type A, goal-oriented, action-taking, we forget to stop and appreciate success. It's like, okay, that's done, next. And if you can't verbalize that, or if you can't write it down, then two things happen. One, you never feel like you're successful. You'll constantly be feeling like you're defeated or you're never there. But also, as a leader, if you're not doing this for your team, like, people need KPIs. They need to know what is your measure of success. I mean, this is not me. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, he adapted it for the workplace. So at the bottom is people want to feel safe. They want to know that they've got a secure job and that they're going to get paid. But as you move up the ladder, people want to be challenged. They want autonomy. They want to be able to think and be creative and hit obstacles and problem solve. And if you're just expecting people to turn up and do their jobs and you're not challenging them and you're not giving them some kind of way to think outside the box, then you lose people, you lose great people, because it becomes just a transactional position that anyone can do. And I think that's where, again, just setting KPIs and giving people something to strive for. I mean, in my business, we used to have the different stores, and they didn't particularly get anything for hitting targets. Like occasionally we would give vouchers and stuff, but they used to call each other and go, I just got a $2,000 sale, beating you, because they could see across all the registers. And just that friendly competition was enough. Or they would call each other and go, I had a customer who did this. Like, what would you have done? Like, this is what I did. What would you have done? And that autonomy of your team and making them feel like they are part of something bigger will win you people for life. Like, I had people who stayed in my business for 5, 6, 7 years. In my current business, best employee is now like 6 years in, 7 years in. Funnily enough, she was my competition when I had my retail business. And then the only people we tend to lose are people who don't like to be managed. And so the minute you start calling them out and saying, but we had to get this done, it's kind of performance managing people out, because all those people do is bring down the rest of the team, and you build resentment and a toxic workplace. So
one of the best things that I did in my retail business, which seems so simple, but, was a decision at the time that my business partner and I kind of tinkered on and then just decided, let's give it a go, was staff meetings. We'd never implemented monthly staff meetings where we would talk about the goals and, get their opinions on, what marketing to do, and just throw around ideas and go out for dinner. And I walked away from that meeting going, oh, I'm a really bad person. They are so much smarter than I ever gave them credit for running a business.
But they should be smarter than you. Like, every employee should be smarter than you. Every person on your team should be better at doing their job than you ever were. Because your goal, well, if you want to scale, assuming you want to scale, your goal should always be to make yourself redundant in that role.
Yeah,
because we haven't talked about this, and please pull me back into line if we're talking for too long. But if I can just give a quick overview, if you're going to sell your business, then if it's a job, as what we've called JOB, that you and I have been talking about, that some people are completely happy with, on average, you can get 1 to maybe 1.5 times your earnings, not your revenue, your earnings.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, however much you took out $100,000, that's all someone is going to pay for your business, plus maybe stock. There's no goodwill, there's no anything. But if you have a professionally managed business, and by professionally managed, it means that someone can buy your business and either integrate it into theirs, or they don't have to work in your store, or they don't have to be the person that runs the entire business. If they can create something out of your business that doesn't require them having to make every single decision, then you are looking at anything from 3 to 6 times more money.
Yep.
Like, that's huge.
That's massive, but you can see, because not everyone wants to buy themselves a job.
No. And sometimes it might just be a competitor. It's like,
yes.
I don't want you at all. All I want is your location or your people or your customers. And they're not going to pay you 3 times if you're the person who works behind the counter, or if you're the person who's writing the copy, or there's nothing in it for them. And the only value they're going to place is the bit that they want to pick out. And I've done this. I've bought a business for the email list and said, I'll give you $5,000 for the email list.
Yeah.
I don't want anything else. The rest of it's crap. But you have to, you put so much heart and soul into your business, but the other person doesn't care about that. They only want the bit that they want. And so if you can even just get your business to the point where you don't have to be the entire driving force. Yes, you can be the vision, and yes, you can do some of the work. But if you can get your business to a point where, if we're talking about retail, you have a store manager, you have staff, you have a marketing plan, you have suppliers, you've got a bookkeeper looking after your money, or you've got a virtual CFO looking after your money. that becomes instantly more attractive to somebody else.
Mhm.
And so if nothing else, think about scaling in terms of the return you want to get out for the 5, 10, 15, 20 years that you put in. Is it just 1x? And I see so many businesses, taking ridiculously small amounts of money because the owner didn't take a big wage. They took 50 grand a year. And now all they're going to get is 50 grand. And they're like, I put 20 years into this to get 50 grand. Like, surely it's got to be worth more than that. And it's like, actually, it's not.
Yeah, for all the reasons you just sort of talked about, for sure. Yeah, this has been such a great conversation, Sal. You are just a wealth of knowledge, information, and highlights for anyone who's listening. But one of the questions I really did want to put into the conversation is, you talked about how you started a business during the GFC. Now, I'm certainly not predicting that there's a GFC or a recession coming, and I think that the media would like us to think there's a recession coming, but I think we need to look beyond the scary stories that they keep serving us up. But what does retail look like in 2023? Because my experience over the last couple of years is we've seen a really big peak for online e-commerce because we couldn't go shopping. And now things just like the housing market and every other market is really starting to settle. So, but your knowledge you have around e-commerce and retail, I'd like to get your thoughts on what's this going to look like this year.
So I think we can't deny that there is a tightening of belts.
Yes.
Like there are groups of people who are spending less.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a choice in business, I will always go after the people where discretionary income is not really a factor depending on economic circumstances. And so we could call it a luxury brand, but even higher end brands, if you use the words in your branding of things like affordable or value, then you are probably being affected right now because you're trying to go after that mid-tier people bracket of spenders. And they are the people who are tightening their belts right now. But at the same time, the client I was just talking to you about is a fashion store in Canada, purely online, just sold $11,000 worth of jeans in 2 days at $175 a pair.
Mm-hmm.
So the simple fact is people are still spending money. And I mean, it's February now, but I just did a Christmas tree drive for Scouts, 10th of December. We made a ridiculous amount. Christmas tree, a real Christmas tree. Is that a luxury item? Kind of, sort of, right? Like you could buy a $35 one from Kmart, or you could buy the $150 live one that's only going to last for 4 weeks. And the Christmas pudding, because of course we put cross sells in, and the Christmas cake. And what else did we say? Oh, and donations. And so the simple fact is people will always have money to spend. Mm-hmm. You have to ask yourself why they are or why they aren't spending with you. Now, some of it might be, like you said, marketing. Like you and I both know that people are in Facebook groups every single day going, my sales have dropped off. Can you tell me what's wrong with my website? And we both, the first question we ask is, so what marketing are you doing? And they say, posting on social media. All right, so 4 people saw you yesterday. Like that is not marketing, guys. And so there's two things there is, one, you have to know your customer. And if you are going to go after the customer that everybody else is going after, that, that mid-tier customer who is really feeling the crunch because interest rates have gone up 9 times, then yeah, you are going to be effective. But if you are also not doing any marketing, then now more than ever, customers in that mid-tier bracket are much more savvy and can do a lot more research. So if you're not using things like Google Shopping, you're a freaking idiot, because we don't have time. Like I'm going on a yacht on Friday for a business thing. And I'm like,
darn.
I know, so hard. But I'm like, I wear wrap dresses and they are not yacht worthy because a bit of wind and whoop. And I was like, okay, so I need to buy a new dress that is like in my head, I knew I needed a halter neck because I like the halter neck style. And I wanted a maxi dress, but not a frou-frou one. I kind of wanted one that was still quite slim fitting so that if the wind got up, it didn't go woof. So what did I do? I Google shopped halter neck maxi dress. Now, if you sell Halternet maxi dresses and you weren't on Google Shopping, I did not come to your store because I just sat there and I just browsed through Google Shopping, and then I was like, pink, yellow, green, blue, to kind of narrow it down. And then I bought one, and because they had Google Shopping. So so what we said was, 1, knowing who your customer is, 2, making sure you're marketing, but 3, also being where people are looking, because if you are selling stuff, people are looking, like, that's the first place we're going to go, Google Shopping. Yes, we still go into stores. I'm not going to deny the fact that, had I been able to get that dress in a store, I would have gone there, but they didn't have it within a 30-kilometer radius. Luckily, it turned up in time and it looks great. But people will always want stuff now. So yes, the discretionary spending is going to be reduced in certain brackets. But at the same time, people are dropping money like there's no, like we have a holiday house and people were spending $7,000 to spend a week there at Christmas.
Yeah.
There's people still have money.
Yes.
Not everybody is affected to that level. So don't take your own necessarily financial situation or your own money beliefs and put them onto your customers, because no one died and made you the value god. Because what some people value, in my case, going to Google Shopping, maybe spending a bit more, but knowing I can buy a dress in 30 minutes or less, may not be what you value.
Yeah. I think, so many good points there. And I remember was in a Facebook group just last week, I think it was, and they were talking about, my sales have gone down and this and that. And this one lady said, oh, look, I had really great sales over the last 2 years and I've barely marketed. It's like, wow.
How much money did you lose?
It's like, how good are you? Guess what? You're going to have to do some marketing now, because
guess what? You probably could have done double the revenue and had some extra cash in the bank to get you through this if you would have done some marketing.
Fancy that. Swallowed the
Fancy
cat.
That. Yeah. I know you love social media and you're way better at it than I probably will ever be, but it can't be the be all and end all. No. It has to just be part of the plan. And if you are not tracking the results that you're getting, if you aren't using UTM tags, if you are not looking at, in our case, your Shopify store to see how much traffic and sales are being driven, if you're not recording any of that, then you're just doing it for what I like to call brand awareness, in air quotes, and you probably can't afford a brand awareness campaign.
Yeah.
Stop just writing stuff off of as brand awareness, because you won't put your CEO hat on. You won't step up. You won't be responsible for making sure that you get a return on investment.
Yeah. Goodness me. Okay. So they were really great points for going into 2023, and really they're just good points for being,
I think they're good points for any time in business
owner.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing. And I think that is part of the problem, and also the joy of the problem is there is no silver bullet. There is no one thing that we can tell you as retail experts or marketing experts or sales experts that are going to help you. You just need to know the basics, and
you need to be tracking. We have what we call the CEO dashboard inside of our programs, and it's actually mandatory for everyone to fill it out as part of their money back guarantee. Because if you aren't tracking, so there's a thing called Pearson's Law, and Pearson's Law is, paraphrased, what's measured improves, and what's measured and reported improves exponentially. And this is why accountability and coaching and all that stuff works, because if someone is calling you out and making you report back, you can bet your bottom dollar that you will put the extra work in. But if you are not measuring and you are not tracking, kind of comes back to how the heck do you know if you're actually doing any good? Like, you get to the end of the quarter and you feel your buzz out and you're like, oh, I got less money than I thought.
Oh, that's not funny.
Now.
That's not funny at all. But yes. I have myself an accountability buddy coach this year, and I've had getting YouTube, like repurposing content in YouTube, on my list for, I'm not even going to tell you how long. And we had an accountability call last Friday. I was darned if I was turning up without that stuff done. I was like, all right, there is no way I can hop on this Zoom and say, oh, I didn't get it done. It was just like, right, quick,
Well,
let's do it.
We have an accountability coach inside of our programs, and you get 7 minutes to answer 5 questions. And that's it. It's nothing else other than, where you're at. What did you say you were going to do? Did you do it? Did you get any were there any obstacles we need to help you with? And what are you going to do in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And guess what? People get stuff done.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. It's amazing. So this has been so good. Thank you so much for your time. This was well worth waiting for, although I did have to wait a little bit longer than I would have liked to have had you on my podcast, but that is entirely my fault for not reaching out a lot earlier. But
That's all good.
Following as a super fan for a very long time. If someone would like to get in touch with you and hear a little bit more about yourself or your programs or follow along, where's the best place for them to get in contact with you?
So if you want to hear more about what I have to say, because clearly I like to speak, I have a podcast called Bringing Business to Retail, where we cover retail and e-commerce growth strategies. You can follow me on social media if you like, the Selena Knight, but I'm working on it. But just send me a DM. I'll talk to you.
Sounds great. I will have the link to your podcast in the show notes, as well as your website and things like that. So thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you for having me. It's been fabulous.
Pleasure. Thanks. See ya. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It was a little long, so you could have listened to it on 1.5 speed, I guess, and have us talk even quicker in your ears. But it was great. There was nothing I could chop out of that to make it any shorter. She is so amazing and so generous with her knowledge. I loved our chat with her. Again, you can find all the links to get in contact with Selena Knight in my show notes. So the link for that is socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/237. And I've just got her website link up there and all her social handles as well. I would love for you to share this episode with another business friend who perhaps would like to hear Selena's gold as well and hear my chat with her. I think it'd be really great. One of the things that I want to do this year is actually put this podcast in front of more people to help more business owners think about their business a little bit differently. And although I normally talk about marketing, Selena has definitely made people think differently through this episode and through her sharing of her knowledge. Otherwise, if you want to get in touch, you can head into my Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you're not a member, then go and join up there. And I know I've already asked for a favor for you to share this episode with another business friend, but if you have even more time to do me a favor, I would love a rating and review on this podcast wherever you are listening as well. Thank you so much in advance for that. But I will see you next week for another podcast episode, for episode 238, actually. It's going to be a cracker, so make sure you come back and have a listen to that one. But in the meantime, if we're not getting social on social, I would love for you to come and find me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or of course, LinkedIn, pretty much as Jen Donovan. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.